and to imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Nah, it doesn't work that way.
The WNBA just went nuts after basketball star Sue Bird changed her mind about Caitlin Clark.
Sue Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlin Clark's exit. You say, what? Why?
That's right. Bird, who once was a supporter of Caitlin, called out Stephen A. Smith, saying the WNBA was doing just well without Clark. Caitlin potentially traveling to Europe, but also enjoying a lovely break right now. Yet Sue believes the numbers are still on a huge scale, which is not true.
Has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring systems to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us.
That was Sue defending Caitlin, but it seems like she's had enough as Caitlin's absence has prompted controversy on social media. Fans want her back and are refusing to watch more WNBA.
Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw. She brings in all the things. And yes, the games where she's not playing have lower viewership. But in the WNBA playoffs are still breaking records from previous WNBA years.
The facts are there. Without Caitlin, the WNBA is riding a downward slope back down to reality. Every game that has been played without Caitlin, we have seen a reduction in viewership. Yet, Sue believes Caitlin's time away from basketball isn't going to cause any problems at all.
But they don't want it to grow if it's certain people at the face. And there is still this undertone of jealousy that for some reason I cannot get around calling it anything else but that, because I don't know what else it could be. I thought it was going to get better this season, but it hasn't. There are still people who seemingly, to me, feel like they just don't want Caitlin to be a part of.
Rachel Dida made a great point. WNBA luminaries don't want the sport to grow when Caitlin is being the face. They would rather go back to square one than have to deal with the competition that Caitlin presents.
The problem, Sue Bird, I know that you gave her props and you acknowledged how phenomenal she was in terms of a draw. What Shannon Sharp and I were guilty of saying was that not enough folks were appreciating it.
Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA was nothing short of transformational. However, as soon as she exited the playoffs, it was as if the WNBA had lost its heartbeat. Now, with Europe rumors on the increase, the league could be in deep trouble. Sue Bird, a WNBA legend, initially had nothing but admiration for Caitlin Clark. Bird had been a vocal advocate of Clark, seeing her as a talent who could change the game for the better. In her early words, Sue Bird recognized that Caitlin Clark wasn't simply another rookie. She was someone who could revolutionize women's basketball.
Moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. I'm not finished. Attendance for the entire league is up nearly 50% this year, and Indiana leads all teams with an average attendance of 17,035, up 319% from a year ago.
But things took a surprise turn when Sue Bird began to underestimate Clark's impact. This was unexpected, especially from someone who had previously spoken so highly of Clark. Suddenly, Bird was saying that Caitlin Clark's presence hadn't made much of a difference to WNBA viewership. Despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, Bird appeared to insinuate that the league's recent struggles had little to do with Clark's absence. The unexpected flip in Bird's opinion left many followers bewildered and even outraged. If there's one person who has consistently supported Caitlin Clark, it's Stephen A. Smith. Known for his bold opinions and unvarnished commentary, Smith has never been one to shy away from controversy. And when Clark exited the playoffs, he was ready to make his opinions known. Smith didn't mince words. He declared that Clark's absence had destroyed the playoff buzz.
Let's just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. Was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down, but attendance was as well.
For Smith, it wasn't just about one player exiting the court. It was about the WNBA losing its biggest appeal. He pointed out how viewership had taken a massive impact since Clark's exit, emphasizing that the league needed to recognize exactly how vital she was to their success. Smith's viewpoint wasn't just a casual observation. It was a call to action. He believed that the WNBA needs to do more to elevate stars like Clark and keep the momentum continuing. But Sue Bird wasn't having it. She publicly called out Stephen A. Smith for his comments, arguing that he was wrong to attribute the reduction in playoff viewership solely to Caitlin Clark's absence. Bird argued that there were many factors at play and that the hype surrounding the playoffs wasn't dependent on one guy. Bird's rebuttal to Smith's comments prompted a heated debate with fans and pundits taking sides. On one hand, you had Stephen A. Smith, who believed that Caitlin Clark was the primary cause for the excitement surrounding the playoffs. On the other, you had Sue Bird, a legend of the game, saying that the WNBA was bigger than any one player, even someone as impactful as Clark.
A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. But there was a lot of people tried to make sure they keep Caitlin Clark in her place, because what you're doing, if you give her all this shine, you minimize what they done. We saw the ratings. We saw the merchandise sales. We saw the attendance. But y'all want to make it about something else.
Bird didn't stop at challenging Stephen A. Smith. She dug back on her stance, refusing to concede that Caitlin Clark's absence was the primary cause of the WNBA's audience loss. Even as viewership plunged after Clark's exit, Bird remained confident that the downturn in interest wasn't entirely about Clark. This failure to accept the Caitlin Clark influence left many fans frustrated. After all, the numbers didn't lie. Viewership had soared when Clark was playing, and it had dropped significantly when she was no longer on the floor. That there were other reasons for the downturn didn't sit well with those who had been closely watching the playoffs. Fans noted out that the excitement surrounding the games had noticeably decreased after Clark's exit, and it was hard to overlook the correlation between her departure and the dip in ratings. But despite this, Bird continued to hold her ground, refusing to give Clark the credit many believed she deserved.
Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million.
This disconnect between Sue Bird and the fans became increasingly obvious as the argument over Caitlin Clark's impact progressed. Bird's refusal to acknowledge Clark's influence left many feeling like the WNBA's veterans were out of touch with the current situation of the league. Fans who had been drawn to the WNBA because of Clark's performances were now feeling alienated by the very legends they had once adored. The idea that Bird, someone who had once been considered as a mentor figure to younger players, was now downplaying Clark's significance was troubling to many. It generated questions about whether the WNBA was ready to evolve or, if it was trapped in the past, unwilling to truly embrace the next generation of stars. The WNBA's refusal to fully recognize Caitlin Clark's contribution has been one of the most perplexing aspects of this entire situation. From the moment Clark entered the league, it was evident that she was different.
Don't y'all want a greater profile? Don't y'all want more notoriety? Don't y'all want more hype? I understand that it's going on still without her now that she's out of the playoffs because the games have been great. But the fact of the matter is, she swelled the interest in the sport.
By failing to properly grasp the Caitlin Clark effect, the WNBA missed out on an opportunity to broaden its audience and establish its place in the sports world. Instead, it now faces declining viewership, dissatisfied fans, and a lack of buzz around its biggest events. The league's hesitation to embrace Clark's star power has left it in a precarious position, one that may be difficult to recover from. Through it all, Stephen A. Smith has remained one of Caitlin Clark's most outspoken supporters. While others have downplayed her impact or simply disregarded her contributions, Smith has frequently called out what he regards as an agenda against Clark. Smith has pointed out how the league seems to treat Clark differently than other players, whether it's through on-court targeting or a lack of off-court promotion. He has commented about how Clark has been singled out by opponents, targeted with fouls, and neglected when it comes to league-wide accolades.
The Caitlin Clark effect is definitely real. I mean, we can all see that. However, experiencing it in person is totally different. I was at the Fever in Indiana game last night, and the amount of 22s that I saw on the way to the arena and inside the Capital One Arena might as well have just been a home game for Caitlin Clark. Not Indiana, Caitlin Clark. The thing is, that didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me was how packed the game was.
Her games garnered in tremendous crowds. Her social media presence was off the charts, and her ability to engage with fans set her apart from many of her colleagues. Yet, despite all of this, the WNBA seemed unwilling to completely embrace the Caitlin Clark impact. Whether it was due to internal politics, envy from other players, or a plain failure to acknowledge her star power, the WNBA failed to capitalize on the surge of interest that Clark brought to the league. Instead of advertising her as the face of the WNBA, the league seemed content to let her rise on her own without the full support of its promotional machine. This oversight would prove expensive as the league's viewership statistics began to fall apart once Clark exited the playoffs. As the controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA continues to escalate, many of her admirers are beginning to advocate for her to leave the league altogether. They say that Clark would be better off playing in the EuroLeague, where she would likely receive more respect and better financial opportunities. In Europe, supporters believe Clark's talents would be fully appreciated, and she wouldn't have to deal with the constant targeting and harassment she suffers in the WNBA. This movement among Clark's fan base is growing stronger by the day, with many calling for her to make the move sooner rather than later. They believe that the WNBA has shown its true colors and that Clark would be better suited playing in a league that acknowledges her skills and contributions.